Welcome to the School of Batman, a podcast where we ask academics to help Batman fight crime using their research. I'm your host, Chris George, amateur scientist and professional Batman enthusiast. In today's episode, we'll be discussing Scarecrow's fear mosquitos. We're pleased to be joined by Anne Duplouy, who has a PhD in molecular biology from the University of Queensland and is currently a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Helsinki and a future Marie Curie Fellow at the Lund University in Sweden. Great. So, we do like to start the podcast with some background on yourself. How you got to where you are today, what were some of the things you were interested in as a kid, what some of your journey has looked like to try and help our listeners understand how people can get to the positions that our academics are in today. So tell us a little bit about that. What's your journey look like and how have you got to where you are?
So I'm originally from France, but I've been living in Helsinki for quite some time. And actually, I've been traveling my whole life. So it's no big surprise to me that I'm doing what I'm doing now, because with work in science and in biology, we can have field work, we can go to conference, and it includes a lot of traveling, and I love traveling. But what brought me to this career, I think it's very much my love of nature, of animal, my curiosity for everything that is natural. So, and my parents have always supported this love for the nature. So I remember going every weekend out for walks in the forest by the seaside and looking at everything alive or dead on the beach. I think nature has always been something I feel very close to. So I wanted to be a vet when I was a younger girl. I wanted to go to Africa and save the elephants, or maybe also help African people with their cattle or their sheep, keep traveling and keep myself close to animals. But I wasn't good at every single topics in school, so I was good in biology, but it's not enough to enter vet school in France. So I found another way of traveling and studying animals through university. So I have a French degree, master degree in ecology and ecosystem, and then I moved to French Polynesia for holidays, and I found a job as a research technician in the American research station in this small island of Moorea in French Polynesia. And I was working there with butterflies and learn all about what is kind of my passion at the moment, about symbiosis. So that's how it started.
So molecular biology to me conjures up the image of lab work and quite lots of kind of microscopes and things like that. So it's quite surprising to hear you talk about the field work involved. So could you explain very briefly what is molecular biology?
Molecular biology is surprisingly looking at molecules, particularly I think looking at what the DNA can tell us. So we have a set of genes that are different and also very similar to other organisms, and they also have a story. They contain our history all the way down to the very first organisms. So by looking at DNA, we can have a better idea of our history on Earth, our evolution, and our potential for further evolution. This is exciting, and we do use microscope, but we also use huge machines that do sequence the DNA, that tell us which gene is after which others, or what are our gene compositions.
Fantastic. And you said your passion at the moment was it symbiosis?
Yes, symbiosis research.
And what does that mean?
So some people will have maybe a different definition, but what I call symbiosis is the intimate and long-term relationships between two different organisms. And for me, one of those organisms is a microbe, so either a bacterium, a virus, or a fungus. And the other organism is the host, and it's usually, for me, it's an insect, and quite often a butterfly.
Because when I heard that term originally, I was thinking of like birds in kind of crocodile teeth, and I don't think of the idea of microbes and larger organisms as being symbiotic.
Yeah, so there is this idea that symbiosis is often a mutualistic relationship, or it's only a mutualistic relationship. And it could be, it's very true, but to me, there is more than mutualism. A symbiont can be a parasite, or it could be just there and it doesn't seem to do any harm or doesn't give any benefit to the host. It's really this long-term association between two different organisms. There's a huge variety of such symbiosis. We can think of the lichens, which is a mixture of two different organisms. So it's a very symbiotic organism. We can also think of coral, that's a polyp, and then there is also an algae associated to it. But in my case, my favorite organism is butterfly as the host, and then the symbionts will be this bacterium called Wolbachia. The interesting thing is that when you look at some traits of the symbiosis, so for example, you could have a butterfly and the Wolbachia bacterium. They are associated, and if you look at the survival of the butterfly, maybe it will be increased when the bacterium is present versus when the bacterium is absent. But then if you look at another trait, which could be fecundity, when the bacterium is present, the fecundity will be reduced, and when the bacterium is absent, it will be increased. So depending on which trait of the host you look at, the symbionts can be either mutualistic or parasitic. So it really depends of your questions and the context as well.
Great. I think it's time to move on to your story. And before we start our story, we'd like to ask our guests which Batman actor they have chosen to be your Batman in your story. So have you chosen one?
I have this very clear memory of my childhood where on Sunday morning we were waking up early with my youngest sister, and then my parents were letting us go and watch the TV while we were waiting for the breakfast. And what was on TV was this old Batman TV series where I think it's Adam West was in this very simple Batman suit with Robin always with him. And then there was this music which was like Batman, ta-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I really remember this as a very fond memory, also because of those vintage boom, bam, boom images that were showing up. So I think that will be my Batman.
Great, and what a lovely memory to have. Master of Chemicals, the Scarecrow, tired of being fooled by the Batman, has dreamed up a terrifying new delivery method that he's certain will elude the Caped Crusader. By genetically modifying a simple mosquito with a virus from its nest in the sewers, he's able to let loose upon Gotham hundreds and possibly thousands of tiny fear delivery machines that can't be stopped. What can our hero do? And that's a pretty terrifying story. I think a lot of times we think of villains and challenges of being very large and as something that's going to overpower us by their size or their physicality. But the idea of these mosquitoes with this fear virus flying around Gotham, infecting people on an individual basis is terrifying, and obviously with a lot of parallels to real life. So what can Batman do here? How would he start?
he should look into symbiosis in the mosquitoes that have been released by Scarecrow. Because there is a line of research that is looking into this interaction between the host and the symbionts and trying to reduce the transmission of such viruses. So by engineering some mosquitoes that have a different set of endosymbionts, we could reduce the reproduction rate of the wild mosquitoes and then reduce their potential to meet the host. But also some studies have shown that when mosquitoes are infected with some particular symbionts, they can't transmit the virus as their non-infected counterpart. So somehow the presence of the symbionts in those mosquitoes is counteracting the development of the virus in the mosquitoes, and then the mosquito can't transmit the virus to the human that it's biting.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to unpack some of that, because that was pretty difficult to follow at points. So I guess the very first thing he's got to do, he's got to break into this nest, and he's got to take Scarecrow down, and that's Batman's bread and butter. He can go in, punch him in the face, get some nice big pows and some bangs and some wallops, take the Scarecrow down. Great, so we've got that, but the problem is still there. So these things are flying around, and you can lock up a Scarecrow, but you can't lock up a bunch of mosquitoes. So you were saying, I'm going to start from the beginning. You were saying that a mosquito in real life and in the Batman universe has symbiotes. Is symbiotes the correct term? I'm thinking of that purely from a Venom point of view from Spider-Man. I don't even know if that's a real word.
So from research, we know that about 60% of insect species in the wild carry some symbionts, especially this Wolbachia symbionts. And
that was the word I was looking for. Was it symbiont?
Yes, symbiont. Some species or some population of some species don't seem to carry that particular Wolbachia symbionts. And when we mate an infected males with an uninfected female, the progeny of that female is gonna die, because the symbionts is creating some kind of incompatibility between the sperm of the male, which is infected, and the ovaries of the female, which is uninfected. And then because they are incompatible, the progeny doesn't develop and dies. So if Scarecrow has released uninfected mosquitoes in the wild, and they are transmitting that particular virus, by introducing infected males in the wild, which are going to mate with the Wolbachia-free females, then at the next generation we'll have a lot of mortality of the offspring, and then the population of mosquito is going to drastically be reduced.
Right, so the mosquito itself can have this fear virus as part of it, but not have this symbiont as part of it as well. Those are two kind of separate ideas.
Yeah, it can also have it if the mosquito released in the wild have symbionts. We can use a different strain, a different type of the symbionts to inject in the males and then release those males. And then because the two infections are different, there will also be incompatibility between males and females, and then mortality of the offspring. So this is called cytoplasmic incompatibility.
Okay, so I'm guessing, I'm inferring from what you're saying, that to be able to counter this, Batman is going to have to know whether the released mosquitoes have these symbionts or not. So he's going to have to capture one, I guess.
It can capture a few of those, and then we can quickly detect if it has an infection or not through very simple molecular technique in the lab. Within a couple of hours, we can have an answer if it's infected or not by the symbionts. If not, well, it's easy. You can just put whatever incompatible symbionts in the males that you have in the lab, and then release them in the wild, and they will be incompatible.
Great. So he's gone out, he's punched a mosquito, he's put it in the lab, he's identified that it does have symbionts, and so he's going to know what that symbiont is, and then he can introduce. Do you say he then introduces a different strain of symbiont?
Yeah, he can introduce. We can do that for him.
Yeah?
He can introduce a different strain of symbionts into lab-reared individuals, and then we can release them in the area where the mosquitoes that are transmitting the virus are present.
Right. And what length of kind of generation does a mosquito have? Like, how long does a mosquito live?
So as an adult, a mosquito can live fairly long. I haven't reared myself mosquitoes because, as I said before, I work mostly with butterflies, but I would think a month or over a month adult mosquito can live. When a female lays eggs, it takes 2 to 3 days for the larvae to hatch from the eggs. And then after that, an extra 5 days to get a pupae, and then after 2 days the pupae emerge an adult mosquito. So pretty much within 10 days maximum you can have eggs to adult. So it's pretty quick.
So these existing mosquitoes that are out there, he's managed to release a few hundred. We're going to have to hope that some of those get taken down by natural causes, be swatted. It is a city and things after all.
Eaten by birds.
Eaten by birds. Then we're going to have some pretty scared birds running around the place, I would imagine. But then after 10 days, we can start nullifying the situation with these fresh bat mosquitoes that are there to save the day.
Yes, or we could use mosquitoes that have been already reared in the lab.
Wow, so you don't need to do this with brand new mosquitoes. You can take an existing uninfected mosquito and influence those and release those?
Yeah, if they have a different symbionts infection, we can. There's labs all around the world that are actually rearing a huge amount of mosquitoes in order to stop the spread of Zika, dengue viruses, and other viruses that are actually currently making our life pretty miserable, I would say.
All right, so a man of Bruce Wayne's kind of means would probably be able to get himself a lot of mosquitoes very quickly. So we could take this situation down certainly in the less than 10 days.
Yeah, hopefully.
This world of Symbiosis is a world that's quite unfamiliar to me and sounds pretty amazing. What other types of examples do you think our listeners would find interesting about this world?
We are in symbiosis. Like, we might not realize it, but we are not an individual. We are many because we are in association with our gut microbiota, which is composed of trillions of bacteria cells and fungus, and without them we can't go very far. We can't digest our food. There is many examples of such association, like cows wouldn't be able to digest grass, termites wouldn't be able to digest wood, and also our own evolution has been possible because of a symbiosis, because of our association of very early cells together, because everything at the beginning was just one cell, and then 2 cells got together, and then now we are a eukaryote, a human being in every single of our cells has a mitochondria, which was a bacteria in the past. So it's everywhere. This particular wasp that actually is in association with a a bacterium. So when the mother wasp lay an egg in the ground, so it's not a wasp like you imagine it. It's the bee wolf wasp. So when the female laid eggs, it's underground, and then in the soil you can imagine there's a lot of bacteria, there's a lot of fungus. There's like how many times your mom told you not to put mud in your mouth. There's a reason. But then the egg is not able to move, it's not able to groom itself, so it could be very well attacked by those bacteria from the soil and those fungi from the soil. And what the mom wasp does before leaving the egg alone until it becomes another wasp, it actually covers the wall of the cell where the egg is deposited with this bacteria called Pseudomonas, and the bacteria is actually protecting the egg of the wasp against fungal growth in the nest. So it's really has the bacteria itself has antimicrobial compounds that is protecting the eggs against another pathogenic fungus. So in nature we have a huge potential for natural compounds to be produced by other organisms. But if we destroy nature, we're going to lose that biodiversity potentially before we study and discover the potential of those compounds, which could in a way have save millions of human life in the future.
That's all for now. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Anne for joining us.
Thank you. I had a really good time.
You can follow Anne on Twitter at DUPLOUY_ANNE, or you can learn more about her research at Duplouy.net. If you'd like to discuss your research on a future episode, email us at info@figshare.com.